Hello, my name is Dr. Neil Levitsky, and I'm a psychiatrist in Toronto, Canada, and I wish to make this video a bit of an explanation about what is MB-EAT. The initials for MB-EAT stands for Mindfulness-Based Eating Awareness Training. So this is essentially a sort of group class or group therapy program where people learn skills and tools to manage their eating, to accomplish goals of losing weight, to reduce the amount of overeating and emotional eating. It can help people who tend to binge eat. Very common problems: being overweight, having difficulty losing weight, eating too much of unhealthy foods. This is a program, Mindfulness-Based Eating Awareness Training, is a group which I'm currently running, and this video may be useful for people who want to find out more about what it's about, who are just curious about it. It's a program that was actually developed by Dr. Jean Christeller, who is a psychologist in the US, and she had expertise in eating disorders as well as a strong interest in mindfulness. And she collaborated with Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is well known for developing mindfulness-based stress reduction, and decided to do a very modified version of his program with much more focus on eating and mindful awareness of things like hunger and fullness and food cravings. And her program, which is the program I'm running here in Toronto, is called Mindfulness-Based Eating Awareness Training. She has done research on it, in fact, and others have as well, and there's certainly research showing very promising findings that people who do this program make changes in their eating behaviors. And it's quite different from a usual diet. It's not just another diet that, of course, a very common problem is that most diets work in the short run. People try all kinds of diets, and the research is clear. 90 to 95% of people just regain the weight that they've lost on their diet eventually. And of course, many people are familiar with yo-yo dieting, the problem of losing weight, but then regaining even more than was lost for a variety of reasons. So this MB-EAT program is really for anyone who is having difficulty losing weight, who is overweight or obese, who finds themselves often binging on unhealthy foods or just on overly large quantities, someone who finds themselves engaging in a lot of emotional eating or stress eating. And the program consists of a 2.5-hour meeting once a week where there's a very structured program, a curriculum that we're following with homework each week. So there's a once a week meeting for 10 weeks, and then 2 more sessions that are follow-ups, usually about once a month. So a total of 12 meetings. And a typical meeting will involve some meditation, some mindfulness practice. Most of the meetings will actually eat some food during the meeting together, often just a small snack, although one of the meetings we actually eat a meal together. And we practice mindful eating, actually taking the food and looking at it, smelling it, tasting it, noticing all the textures, smell and taste, the sensations, so that we're practicing really just eating mindfully with awareness. The word mindfulness really just means being aware, paying attention, noticing what's happening in the moment. But in particular, observing these present moment experiences with an attitude of openness, non-judging, acceptance, curiosity. And this can be practiced in many ways. A very traditional way of practicing mindfulness is through meditation. So part of the MB-EAT program does involve meditation. Typically we'll do maybe a 15 or 20 minute meditation at the meeting, and then there'll be an assignment to try to practice that once a day at home. The the purpose of mindful eating incorporates many different aspects. So one obvious thing is that we might enjoy food more if we savor it, if we really slow down, pay attention, notice the details of the food. This can actually help with overeating, because when you think about it, if you're really enjoying your food a lot more, you might also be able to stop earlier when you realize you're quite satisfied. Think of the opposite, mindless eating. Very common, maybe we're watching TV or something, you have some food in front of you, you're just eating mindlessly, not paying any attention to it. I've noticed myself that in a movie theater, if you get a big bag of popcorn and you're watching the movie, you could just be eating and you don't even realize that you've eaten all this popcorn, the bag is empty. And really, how much enjoyment did you get from it if you weren't even paying attention? But mindfulness can also help us be aware of other things. For example, in the program, we'll talk about being mindful of body signals, body sensations that tell us when we're hungry and that tell us when we're full. This can be very, very useful for obvious reasons. If you, for example, were to only eat when you are significantly hungry, or at least moderately hungry, and not eat when you're not hungry, and then while you're eating, if you stopped eating when you were moderately full, say on a scale of 1 to 10, if 10 is the most full you can be, it doesn't feel good to eat till you're totally stuffed, till you can't put another bite in. So it makes sense to stop at some point. And it's hard to do that unless you're aware of your body's signals of what's happening. And we'll also in the program talk about being mindful of thoughts and emotions, noticing triggers for craving, triggers for eating. It's just the way human beings are, that we're not just triggered to eat by hunger, but by many other things. Sometimes just seeing food. Think of a time you've walked by a bakery or been walking down the aisle of a store and saw something that looked very appealing that you wanted to eat. Maybe you just had a meal an hour before and you're not actually hungry. Or you're at someone's home and they're offering you some homemade dessert and you've just finished a large meal and you're not hungry anymore, but suddenly you want that food. So we want to eat for many reasons. We often want to eat just for comfort, sometimes out of boredom, or sometimes to soothe unpleasant emotions. So all of those things are things that we can be more mindful of, and we talk about that in the program. So by eating more mindfully, it can allow you to eat less food and actually enjoy it more. In fact, Jean Christeller, who developed this program, has written a book, a very, very well-written self-help book that I would highly recommend reading if you're interested in this. And the title of the book is The Joy of Half a Cookie. It's sort of a funny title, but when you think about it, it makes sense. At first, you would think, well, half a cookie doesn't sound like much fun. But if you ate half a cookie very mindfully and savoring every little bit of it, you'd enjoy it a lot. But you could eat a whole box of cookies mindlessly, not paying attention, and get very little enjoyment from it. So through this MBEAT program, it allows people to be less controlled by their cravings or by triggers for eating. It allows for healthier eating, but without so much struggle. And obviously we can eat much healthier when we're more likely to eat just when we're hungry and stop eating when we're full. I've noticed there's a number of workbooks and websites talking about intuitive eating as a healthier way of eating. And really it's the same thing. Intuitive eating is described by the people that advocate it as checking with your body and eating according to your body's signals about hunger and fullness. So some of the things that we do within the program include the mindful eating at the actual meetings and homework to practice eating meals and snacks at home mindfully. We also work on developing more mindfulness through meditations, sometimes as simple as just sitting and noticing that you're breathing, feeling the in-breath and the out-breath, and just really being aware of it. we'll have a lot of discussion at the meetings about the idea of eating healthier by making wiser decisions about what to eat, when to eat it, when to stop eating. And we talk about that wisdom coming from a sense of inner wisdom and outer wisdom. So inner wisdom refers to wisdom that comes from being aware of what's going on inside you. For example, hunger and fullness. Outer wisdom refers to wisdom based on knowledge of things outside us. So for example, having knowledge of the nutrition content of food and how many calories are in a certain portion of food. And being aware of how many calories we actually need in a day and how much exercise we're getting. Throughout the program, rather than try to change everything at once, we try to keep it manageable by each week setting 2 or 3 small goals. That way it's not overwhelming, but each week there can be a chance to think about what would be a goal or 2 or 3 goals that I could work on over the coming week. For example, a goal may be to just have more fruit or more vegetables in the day. Or a goal may be to eat what's on your plate, but purposely not finish everything on the plate. To practice leaving some over, or even throwing out some food. People are often reluctant and have been trained, perhaps by parents who mean well, to finish everything on your plate and not waste it. We also talk about an option in the program called the 500 calorie challenge, where for 1 week, there's monitoring of everything you eat, writing it down, looking up the calorie content, and looking at potential places to reduce eating, to reduce calories through just small changes in each meal and snack. For example, you might decide, well, that sandwich I have for lunch, if I leave the slice of cheese out, maybe that's 100 calories less. Or perhaps you put sugar in your coffee or tea, and instead of 2 spoons, you put 1. And by adding up the number of little changes you can make in a day, often it's actually quite feasible to reduce by 500 calories a day. This could lead to quite significant weight loss, perhaps as much as 1 pound a week. We also talk about mindfulness in a slightly different way, related to being aware of how often we're critical of ourselves and working on areas like self-forgiveness, self-compassion, and decreasing shame. Often we have negative cycles of overeating, feeling shame and self-criticism, and then when that makes you feel worse, you just want to eat more. We'll also talk about handling some different difficult situations, like sort of all-you-can-eat settings, which might be big holiday meals or buffet at a restaurant. And we'll talk about ways of monitoring progress through different goals, perhaps once a week monitoring of weight, perhaps monitoring the amount of exercise, whether it's a number of minutes per day or number of steps per day. And there's also discussion in the sessions about nutrition and healthy eating. I particularly like the new 2019 Canada Food Guide. It's quite simple. It's a picture of a plate, and the plate is divided into half fruits and vegetables, 1/4 healthy proteins, and 1/4 whole grains. It's a simple reminder of the kinds of foods that are healthy, and we don't need to follow any sort of complicated fad diet. So right now I'm running this group here in Toronto, and it's being run in other cities around the world. If you would like more information, you can Google my name and find my office practice website. And if you can't find a group near where you are, an option is to read Jean Christeller's book, The Joy of Half a Cookie. You'll find that it covers all the main aspects of the program, and it gives you a good start to even work on your own. There's also other resources. You may find books by Michelle May useful, where she talks about different ways of mindful eating. And there's actually a telephone app, an app for smartphones called Eat Right Now, developed by Dr. Judson Brewer, who is a US psychiatrist. And for a subscription fee, you can use the app and get all kinds of support and essentially get guidance through a mindful eating program. So hopefully this gives you some more information about MB Eat and what it's all about.